Empower Impact, a podcast where we interview women from various nonprofits and community organizations doing impactful work in their communities. Today, we are speaking with Shekinah B, the Executive Director of the Women's Coalition for Empowerment. Shekinah, thank you so much for being here. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Shekinah. I'm actually a New York native, and I've been transplanted in the Philadelphia area, and I primarily do arts and culture activations in partnerships with institutions as it pertains to supporting creatives that are low to moderate income in the greater Philadelphia region.
Awesome. Thank you. So that kind of segues us perfectly into the first question, which is what inspired you to start the Women's Coalition for Empowerment?
Yes. As an emerging creative, when I moved to Philadelphia, just a few short decades ago, I found that there was a disconnect in compensation, pay, and professional efficacy as it pertains to the artists in connection with venues and or talent buyers. So there's a huge problem with exploitation and a lack of professional understanding between the two parties that often the artists typically get exploited. So being an artist who experienced that for several years in the earlier stages of my career, I decided to form a coalition of people, enthusiasts, and like-minded individuals that would seek to improve those conditions.
Awesome. And so what are some of the programs that you run in the community as part of your coalition? So on your website, I saw the Juneteenth festival and also the program Sisters Attuned. So if you could talk about both of those.
Yes. So initially, when we began to start programming, we worked with the Women's Collective, and we're still ongoing, Sisters Attuned, which was a rotating, revolving vocal collective from artists that are in the greater Philadelphia region, spanning genres from jazz, R&B, funk, gospel, and pop. So us coming together, we've done collective productions where we highlight each individual vocalist. So every vocalist that's a part of it in some capacity or another has their own individual band and brand. And we support those relationships between us and institutions where their funding goes to pay us. So the exploitation factor is now no longer an issue as it pertains to us, because we make sure that every artist performing in any activation that we do is compensated fairly. Also, the Juneteenth Festival, we started out as the Juneteenth Wine Arts Festival for the last 3 years. And moving forward, it's going to be the Juneteenth Wellness and Arts Festival, where we highlight local businesses for an increase in tourism to improve the impact on outreach of the audiences for many of the artists who we work with. Coincidentally, are independent artists that are seeking to expand their marketplace value and outreach with diverse communities throughout. So it's great that the program exists to provide platforms for artists that don't have as large of a following, but collectively we are mighty, and we've done quite a bit of great work in our city.
Awesome. And so for that festival, I'm assuming you get a lot of people in the greater Philadelphia region that come and participate, and that's really cool. And if I lived in Philly, I would definitely go, but I don't.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And sounds like a great time.
Yeah, interestingly enough, we get people that are not from Philly. So a lot of visitors, a good amount of visitors from the surrounding states, Delaware, New Jersey, even New York. We've had people from Atlanta, and they're like, oh, we saw you on Instagram and we just wanted to visit to see what this was all about, because there hasn't been a Juneteenth wine festival ever until we did it. So we kind of historically did it first.
That's
and
cool.
Now there's a lot of other wine events that are happening now, but we specifically did something for Juneteenth. So now we're moving into the wellness space for the sober curious communities.
Yes, I did see that. And I thought that was a really cool thing to do as well.
Yeah. What we realized is that we don't want to have art activations primarily be synonymous with alcohol consumption. And we want to try to include populations that typically don't drink. So we're partnering with the Phoenix, and their mission is to support creatives that are in different stages of sobriety and trying to support that journey with this program and also highlight artists who may have also been in their journey on sobriety, but supporting their amplification within the creative sector as entertainers.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And so I feel like that's not something I've even really consciously thought of. But now that you mention it, it's like, yeah, that is really important. And that's really cool that you're doing.
A lot of people sometimes have this stereotype of creatives just being like drug and alcohol abusers. And it's not to say that it doesn't exist, but we're dispelling that narrative, and we want to just focus on more positive realities that exist within the creative sector among healthy, well-rounded and disciplined creatives who are out here partnering with institutions and being role models to our community, but also, sharing incredible performance art.
Yeah. And speaking of performance art, I know you mentioned that it was born out of your experiences, but can you talk more about your art specifically and kind of what area you're in?
Yes. So I am a vocalist, but singer-songwriter. I host events. I've been the voice of God. I started to get into voice work a little bit, and I'm the author of 2 books. My first book was called Take Charge, where it's the workbook for creatives where we're teaching artists how to establish firm boundaries within their lives and also within business. And then the second book is the Art Economic Empowerment Workbook, where we're showing emerging creative entrepreneurs steps within the Pennsylvania region on how to establish a business, secure funding, execute programming, and also successfully partner with institutional supporters.
Awesome. Yes. And I did see those 2 books on your website as well. And actually, the second book about the art empowerment part was what leads me to that next question. But it's you kind of mentioned the creative economy and the art economy. But can you just explain that concept, kind of just go into it a little bit?
You know what? So few people actually ask that question. So the creative economy is not just artists among being artists. It's artists in the workforce. It's artists transferring goods and services throughout the duration of corporate sponsors, corporate partners, business partners, private partners, private talent buyers. So these are the opportunities that create jobs. So there is an entire marketplace of creatives from all disciplines that are transferring talents as enterprises in partnership or in tandem with institutions, individuals, private, corporate, public. And it allows for things like tourism, that drives income and it drives revenue sources into the city. So when you see certain artists, recently Kiki Wyatt was just at the African American Museum in Philadelphia. That was a sold out event at the African American Museum. And many of the people coming to see Kiki Wyatt were not in the Philadelphia area. But what did that do? That means people are coming in their hotels. So now the hotels are getting income, Uber, people from out of town. Well, we're not flying right now, but people who are just not in the area, who don't live here, are bringing in revenue into our city. So it is a impactful component to our overall gross domestic product, which the arts and culture make up over $1 trillion for gross domestic product as it pertains to art creation, movies, film, television, concerts, sculptures, murals. I mean, I could go through a plethora of dancing, ballets, and productions, musicals, plays. All of that make up the creative economy. So it's important for people to, one, recognize, but 2, support, 3, compensate, and value and respect this. This is an occupation, a very diverse occupation of creative entrepreneurs and individuals.
Yeah. And actually, you mentioned that no one has really asked, but that was something that really interested me because I plan to major in economics in college, and this was an area of economics that I haven't ever really heard of, which was really cool to hear. And being kind of a creative myself, I've been a singer since a child. I've been Indian classical voice and stuff. That's kind of what I do.
Indian scales are next world. It's next level. It's oh my God. Oh, don't even get me excited right now. Woo!
Yeah. So like that was like just the kind of melding of those was really interesting to hear. And yeah, like what, as you mentioned, it's just so important because I feel like it was here like, oh, well, like don't go into the arts if you want to like make money, if that's what you care about. But like it is a thing that like exists and like creatives should be compensated for the value that they provide because it's like without music and like art, like what is life kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, think about the high-end consumption of creativity that was being like I want to say overused during our quarantines. Even though people weren't able to go out, guess what? We're watching television, we're streaming, we're online, we're, commercials, there's music, movies, there's soundtracks, there's scores. So all of these things, there's art, there's visuals, there's so many different elements of art that just kind of, the artists often don't get the fair compensation. But I will tell you who's making the bulk of those $1 trillion, the production companies. So we need for artists to recognize that they themselves are their own production company and to operate as one. And they'll see a difference in the approach and how they, one, secure funding, but two, maintain funding and relationships and develop a level of long-term sustainability and security. So yeah, there is a such thing as a struggling artist. That's a narrative that we are always trying to dispel. And not because it doesn't exist, but because we're shifting our mindsets and becoming more aware on how to operate moving forward to be a sustainable enterprise, even as an individual creative, but you're still in production.
Yeah, I love that. And it really is so important. And kind of, so like, as you mentioned, like compensation and like, even with the Juneteenth festival, how can people in the community support your efforts for the organization, support the efforts of the creatives under your organization?
Yeah. So one, I know a lot of the kids are doing social media. So you can follow the Women's Coalition for Empowerment on Instagram at THEWCEINC, or you can visit our website, thewce.org. So THEWCE.org. You can hit that donate button. Our ticket is already live for the Juneteenth Wellness and Arts Festival happening June 20th, 2026. And a lot of our events, there's still events being added to the calendar before the end of 2025. Yes, it's this time of the year. We're in this time of the year and there's still being events being added that are open to the general public. So yeah. Awesome. Another thing I would like to add is that many of the artists that I've encountered in some capacity or another have gone to music schools. And there has been a large focus on the musicality or the artistic discipline area, but not a lot of conversation about manifesting that into an entrepreneurial enterprise. There's always discussion on, okay, well, here where the jobs are and here's where you audition and here's where you submit your art. But not so much about, well, here's how you should do your taxes. And this is the type of insurance you need to have. And please, no more GoFundMes for artists. We need to actually have life insurance, right? All of these things.
Yeah. Awesome. And we will link, I'll tag the Instagram on the post, and also it'll be in the description in the website description as well. So people will be able to access that.
Yeah.
And so as you mentioned, like funding and like the entrepreneurship, how has like your work and kind of in the creative space been impacted by the recent administration?
So although our organization is not heavily reliant on federal funding dollars, many of our institutional partners are heavily federally funded. So we've noticed that there have been people who we've partnered with as liaisons to have us booked. They've been terminated because their positions, their salaries were tied into federal dollars. So those federal dollars no longer exist. Another thing is that because of the dismantling of the diversity, equity, and inclusion clauses in many of our contractual agreements, those also have been slashed and decimated. And what we find is now the scarcity mindset. So all of these organizations are applying for many of the types of funding that generally most heavily federally funded institutions wouldn't go after. So now it's less opportunity. It's like we're all like drowning, but everybody's trying to get to that piece of wood to float. So it's been really tough. I've pivoted, and I tell artists that they should pivot. So you should always be refining your craft in such a way that it's almost teachable. So now me personally, as a vocalist, I don't teach it. I do not have the pedagogical skills to teach vocal class, but I do have the pedagogical skills to teach intro to arts administration, creative programming execution, starting a business, how to start identifying bookkeeping practices, and how to leverage relationships in terms of your proposal building and institutional partners. Yeah, I keep using that term, institutional partners, because that has been a bulk of our success throughout our programming.
Yeah. And actually that leads me to the question. So like you mentioned institutional partners, like can you give some examples of like what those look like?
Yes. So for our organization, we have been partnering for the last several years with, I'll give three, the African American Museum in Philadelphia. So we actually have done their Kwanzaa kickoff for this will be our third year doing their Kwanzaa event, where we curate an entire section of Kwanzaa is a whole week, but we curate 1 or 2 days of it. And it's all of from the roster of artists within our organization's network. And then we produce it and execute it, and it's open to the general public. Another one would be the Delaware River Waterfront Corporation, which houses Blue Cross River Rink, which is their ice and skating rink, depending on which time of the year you're talking about, Cherry Street Pier, and Spruce Street Harbor Park. We've done the Sister Soul series at Spruce Street Harbor Park. At Cherry Street Pier, we've done after work sessions at Spruce Street Harbor Park, among several other types of interactive DJ, dance, and art placemaking programming that's open to the general public. Having an institutional partner makes it easier for us to not charge tickets for increased revenue, but to have enough of the budget to cover our production costs and allow it to be accessible financially for diverse groups of people, low to moderate income, art enthusiasts that would like to support and, experience those activations that we provide. Additionally, we've also worked with Center City District, which houses a good portion of programming within the Center City corridor footprint. And we will bring out live entertainment for different series. So we've done the Live at Lunch series, summer edition, the fall edition. We've done that for about half a decade. So sadly, due to the slashing, they completely decimated the program. So the last time it was done was over the summer, and now it's no longer a thing, sadly.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate. And yeah, I think like that was definitely a big question that I had, is because we see like so many things being like slashed and changed and everything. And then like I remember like the biggest arts thing that had happened was like the Kennedy Center and like how that was changed and stuff. So I was curious as to how like it gets affected by like other organizations and such.
Yeah, the Kennedy Center was a very unique circumstance, given as though that they do receive a good amount of endowments that are private. So for them to allow a sitting president to be the chair of their board is a little highly unusual for the nonprofit sector. And that's something that I specialize in as well. I don't think any sitting president could convince our board to be the chair. And even if there was a threat of, well, I won't give you the type of funding, I think the outrage, given the imprint that the Kennedy Center has as a cultural institution, I mean, there are like universities not going for that. So I'm just surprised that they accepted their fate.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Here we are. Things are very interesting. But yes, thank you for speaking on that.
Yeah.
And so kind of like, I usually like wrap up with this question, but like, obviously you've been doing this for a really long time, both like your arts career and also just running the Women's Coalition for Empowerment. So what are some of the biggest lessons you learned in your career that you'd like to pass on to people, other young women in general?
Make sure you have things in writing, contractual agreement. Make sure you have general liability insurance, life insurance, health insurance. Make sure you're taking care of your health and wellness. Many times the biggest stressors I cannot, it is something that I don't know if there's any other way to think about it or speak on it. As a performer, you think about your health and wellness. And sometimes we're so busy chasing money that we neglect ourselves. And we need to just make sure that as much as you want to chase opportunity, chase the opportunity to maintain your health, because that is the wealth. So take care of yourself and each other.
I love that. That is probably the most like practical advice that anyone has ever offered on the podcast, but I appreciate it because like that's kind of like real stuff that people can put in this. And
Oh yeah. Yeah. So what else? Make sure you have really great bookkeeping and financial responsibility, financial management, investing yourselves. A lot of times artists are not interested in self-investment because it's almost like they leave it up to, well, someone else should do that. It's like, well, wait, you should have high quality, high definition photos and visuals on your own. And then you use that and parlay that into. Now, if there is a talent buyer that's investing into that for you, that's fine. But 9 times out of 10, you should already have it and be prepared to go. And time management. Okay, that's too much. Read my book, The Art Economic Empowerment Workbook, for more information on that.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything that you wanted to cover that you felt like didn't get covered in those questions?
I'm trying to think. Is there something? Well, I guess with the insurance piece, because this is a big issue amongst creatives who are full-time artists. Not just the insurance issue. It's so many things. I know I'm jumping, but I'm gonna jump out here on this hill and say it's okay to have a side job or a job. It's okay to have that. Because there are times being an entrepreneur, sometimes the income fluctuates, but your rent or your mortgage and your monthly bills are still going to have to be paid. So let's say you have a contract and it's a 9-month contract and now the remaining portion of the year, that contract doesn't exist. It's okay to work a job. It is actually encouraged to work a job because to be a burden to yourself or someone else intentionally is just unfair. And that's in life and in death. Back to the insurance piece, make sure you're having the investment into life insurance while you're nice and young and healthy. Because once you get to be my age, I'm about 120 years old now. So once you get to be my age, insurance, and if you have any health issues or any illnesses, it makes it way more expensive and more difficult to be insured. There's too many GoFundMes. I've been to so many funerals where there was a pot going around where people were trying to collect money because the funeral homes would not release the bodies to the families or to go bury the bodies. It's okay to get a job and pay for your own life insurance. Without that, and don't wait for the job to do that. You should buy your own life insurance and not wait to get on a job and wait for them. Because if you leave that job, 9 times out of 10, you're not able to take your life insurance with you, which many of my peers have learned when spouses that were in the industry have died and we had to figure it out. And I'm no longer submitting any more of my personal or professional funds toward it because I just can't afford it, especially during this administrative economic crisis that we are in.
Thank you. I like that. I find that like so important because I feel like, a lot of the advice that we get, again, very valuable. There's like, follow your dreams and like set these goals. And like, obviously, yes, but that's like the most practical life advice, like for creatives, but also just for everyone else that I've like heard. And I really appreciate that, actually.
No problem. Well, just think about this. There are several iconic legends who've died in debt. And their families had to scramble to figure out, one, how are we going to bury this person? Who's in charge of their estate? Do they own their royalties? Do they own their intellectual property? There's not a lot of discussion about that. One of the reasons why we need to continue and further our education and protect the things that we are creating. Yeah, and protect yourselves. I spoken.
Thank you so much.
Something that a lot of us overlook in the arts, dental insurance, just so that the dental insurance and dental care is so vital to one's health and wellness, which I have a dentist appointment next week. Hey, But it's important that we take care of all of those that have health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, general liability insurance, business insurance, professional insurance, like all of these things. And you'll be surprised how much more affordable it is and useful it will be in the instance that something happens, because certain things that you have to pay out of pocket for, yeah. Timeliness, talent, and teeth.
Yes.
All right, done. I'm done for real this time.
Oh, good. No, that was good. I might have to put that as the title of the podcast.
Timeliness, talent, teeth. I love it.
I actually will. I probably will, actually.
Please do.
I think it'll draw people in.
Timeliness, talent, teeth. What are we talking about? Please,
Yeah.
you know what's funny? That is a joke among my friends. Just being singers, and we've talked about. I'm big on not sharing my microphone because you just never know what bacterial viral diseases people are spreading from lip to lip. So I'm really concerned about that, especially just oral hygiene in general. And they're like, yeah, so like, you're just a diva. I'm like, I have timeliness, talents, and teeth. Yes. With a trusted gap, but teeth. Yes.
I love that.
And that wraps up our episode for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you back soon for the next episode of Women Power Impact.